plain old child abuse. It's everywhere. And if we get distracted in this sort of American thing where everything's a pennant race and it's either or, you know, and you dogmatically defend this, you dogmatically, so something happens and then you're like, oh, and now I have an opinion on child abuse because Dennis Hastert was involved. Well, like, who gives a shit? You know, what matters is you should care about it all the time, and if you can learn something from the Hastert thing, or you can kind of go, wow, you know, he's in public school, he's a teacher forever, and he's ran the Boy Scouts. By the way, how they're still in business is beyond me, but that's another entire movie. And anyone who sends their child to a Boy Scout camp is, you know, an idiot. So, I'm sure that answers your question.
It actually does pretty well.
I just wanted to say thank you from a very personal place, from my own survival story. I honestly have that feeling that this movie might have just changed my entire trajectory. You've unleashed something really incredible inside of me, both of you, all of you, making this film. And if I could request anything, it's that you write a book. You have the most beautiful words, and there's so many things that I wish I could just write down when I was watching that so I could remember forever.
As it happens, I have one that's due tomorrow for 7 Stories Press. And it's going to be a little late because at the film festival in Baltimore, my hotel room was flooding, and I moved the computer, and then I went and it moved from the air conditioning unit and was flooding the carpet. But what had gone on in Baltimore there lately, I just didn't feel like being a complaining white guy, you know, so I was kind of letting it go. And I took a shower, I got dressed as packing to go, and I pulled my computer up and pulled it, and the cord was kind of dangling, and then I had clean socks, and I stepped in this, you know, puddle of brackish carpet water, and the reflex was when I pulled my leg back, it caught the computer, it flew on the ground, kablamo. Was it backed up? No, it wasn't backed up. And part of the reason it wasn't backed up is because when they make a movie about your life, a lot of people contact you all of a sudden, all the time, to ask you shit like, how do I go to a movie? You know? I don't know, have you ever been to a movie before? I kind of got some other shit to do right now. I got to train you how to go to movies now. So, and I mean, like 3 or 4 times I went to back the damn thing up, and I never did, and then it was destroyed, so I lost all the work I did on it. So I'm trying to, you know, kind of put it back together in about a month, and I think I'm going to, well, I've got enough done that they might just say, you might want to work on this a little more. Oh, fine, I'd be happy to. But I do have a book coming out. And you can find years of my writing on my website, Crimmins.com, and on a daily basis, just the quips and whatever on Twitter, Crimmins. But I'm really glad that you survived. I'm really glad that you're here, and I hope the movie helps you. Because I mean, I really believe that thing. We have to go through things and not around them, and we also have to sort of not, you know, there's certain stuff that's done to abuse survivors that's not so good these days. Like people think that they're making them more powerful, because I think the word empower stands off the word power, makes it weaker, so it makes them more powerful, and it makes them more powerful if they sort of walk around getting pissed at the rest of the world all the time because it's not coming up and specifically apologizing to them about what happened to them. Well, the rest of the world goes through a variety. You don't know what they've been through, they don't know what you've been through. And everything, you know, and if you set up abuse survivors to expect something that's just not going to happen, that, you know, basically, well, the whole world's going to be based around me and everybody's going to apologize to me and think in terms of me all the time, then they're just going to be, you know, they're going to feel betrayed in a bad place all the time and whatever. And it's just like, you know, you can't, you can take what happened to you personally, but you can't take the whole world personally. You can just be part of the whole world. And if people say ignorant things to you or whatever, it's fine. I mean, I did Sam Cedar's podcast a couple weeks ago, and in it, Sam says he'd just seen the movie, and he said, well, I don't want to give away anything about the movie. And I said, well, why? People should know that the movie largely hinges on the fact that I'm a child abuse survivor. And then I didn't get, I mean, it wasn't any horrid, anything that tough that I said after that. And if I had about 4 different people contact me through the internet to discipline me, there should have been a trigger warning on that. Well, what the fuck does it mean when I say you should know that it largely hinges on me? I mean, there's your warning. I'm sorry, it isn't like trigger warning, trademark, but it's, and you set people up with that shit, and then all of a sudden, like the guy who abused you when you were a kid always ate strawberry licorice, and there's strawberry licorice in the movie. Should we have a warning for that too? At some point, we can't just be, we can't be given the ability to just wallow and kind of, we got to get out of that pit, where the pit, you're used to the temperature of it and your own stink and whatever. It doesn't bother you that much. And when you get the thought of standing up and get hosed off, oh, that's cold. But you don't think about 15 minutes later when you're taking a shower and put on clean clothes and you feel better than you felt in so long. So that's why I think you have to go through and not around, and don't borrow trouble with people. And if people are ignorant or do say the wrong thing or whatever, don't treat them. Don't be abusive towards them. Try to explain them. Like people will say to me, oh, you admitted you were abused. And I say, guilty people admit. I disclose. I testify. I don't admit anything. If you get held up at gunpoint, you don't admit you got held up at gunpoint. If you get hit by a hit and run driver, you don't admit that you got hit by a hit and run driver. You disclose, you testify, and that's all. But you can tell someone that very nicely, and they always get it because it makes sense. Oh, gee, I didn't. But it's part of. But that language actually makes it perpetuates making the victim on some level complicit in the crimes committed against them. That's when we got to get to the nitty-gritty and talk about that stuff. But the rest of it, once you know what you've been through, once you sort of have a handle on it, now you got a job to do. With me, I was 38 years old before I ever really began to deal with it. But to me, I lost 34 years at that point, and so I didn't have any more time to waste. So within that AOL stuff you saw, that was a few years later. Nothing helped my healing more than doing something for contemporary children. And I love the movie, but everyone talking about what I went through, all I can think about is what the kids were going through in those photographs. That's what I was thinking about. And the kids that were mentioned in those chat rooms that people were grooming, to be raping, that to me is what bothers me. And it's like, sure, I saw some stuff or whatever, but I couldn't live with myself if I just turned away from it by saying, oh, I'm too frail. And everyone's saying, are you ready to do this? You sure you can do this? It's like, no, I'm not sure, but nobody else is doing it, so I'm not going to walk away from it. And in that case, we got a really good example of why you shouldn't do that. So, again, call me lucky. Thank you. And I wish you the very best in your healing. And I'm sure, I don't know how far along you are, but when you really know your healing is when you see somebody else who's at a point you were at a while ago, and you see yourself in them, and you realize how good you're, how well you've done to get to this next point. And then they bring along the next person, and they bring along the next person. So there's really something in it for you too. So thanks. And I know there's a lot more survivors in here than us. And wherever you are, I love you, and what happened to you was wrong, but you're all right. But you got to do to yourself to take care of yourself and deal with what you have to deal with for you and for everybody.
Thanks. Probably have time for one more. Is anyone in the back? Because I can't see so well. Hey, there you go.
So I have a question about the process of the interviews. I heard your voice a lot during the interviews, and then I noticed at the end of the film there were a lot of images of Barry with the people that you were interviewing. Did you have both of you at most of those interview sessions, or were they done separately? How did that work out?
They were, the interviews were, Barry was on the road with us, but during the interviews he wasn't allowed to be around. And then it was like, we have a surprise guest. And then he would come and say hi to his friends and stuff. It was because some of the places that we were filming were places that Barry was going to be doing, talking about. So that's why he was in the van too. Yeah, so that was it. My daughter always, well, not always, my daughter pointed out, she's like, Dad, you come off like an asshole a little bit in the movie. She's my daughter, yeah. That's what they're for, as Barry said. Because of certain things, like Barry going in the basement, but my initial intentions was I wanted to film the spaces these events happened, but I didn't want Barry in the basement because I care about him and I love him, and I didn't. But Barry was like, I'm going in there. You can film it or not, but he wasn't going to give that space any more power. So. That was one of the things my daughter was like, you look like you forced this guy to go in a basement, and Barry...
I forced my way in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't going to spend all those years thinking about that place and then, go up to it like it had, Crimmins diverters on it, I mean, I was going to walk in and go through it, not around it. And I have, and I'm really glad. It was really good for me, and I think that, the film benefited from it, and I'm glad that we had it on film because I didn't know what I did after I did it, because I also knew I could do it because I was in, the PTSD comes in handy sometimes. It came in handy when I did the child pornography investigation because I was in shock and I knew how to operate in shock. I'd been doing it a lot of my life, and then, at that point, by the time Bob and I were at the house, I go, oh, this is easy, I'm in shock, I can go in there. But I didn't really, I didn't have a great memory of exactly what went down in there, but it was my doing to go in there. And I mean, he could film it and he'd get something from it or not, but I was not going to run away, scared. I mean, and part of it is just sort of like, it sounds kind of corny, but I went in there and got myself as a kid and brought him out, and I'm really lucky that I got to do that.
But yeah, afterwards he's like, I went in complete shock. I don't remember anything I said in the basement. Is any of it usable? I said, I don't know. I'm going to play yakety sax the whole time you're down there, which is the Benny Hill theme. A good question was, who interviewed me? And that's you guys maybe getting exclusive. I did, so it was total bullshit. Like I knew what I needed to be to make it into the movie. So I acted like I was asking me. I go, when Barry went to Cleveland, no one's fucking talking to me. No one asked me about Cleveland, and so yeah. So there's a couple things that are dishonest. There's that. No one's interviewing me, and things like when we went back to Barry's home, and I wanted to show the same place where he was dragging the log. I said, can you, I want you to do the same walk now with the dogs, and it was in the summer. He's like, yeah, it's magical. It's the Wizard of Oz. Oh. And I go, just please walk. So he every time he would walk.
By the way, in that scene when I'm trying to split the wood, I had a broken leg, and somebody here wanted to get the shot. I lifted that fucking log.
And you lifted the log, and it was about 250 pounds because it was filled with water. But I did know
it was filled with sap. Actually.
Well, Barry actually does cut wood, so I didn't think it was that much of a stretch.
No, I just hadn't swung a maul and not split a piece of wood in 10 years, and then the cameras come and my leg has been broken and I haven't done it lately, and I hit it, and when I say this isn't fucking working, I'm going like, in other words, we're not going to use this, right, Bob?
And, fuck this. And I'm like, yeah, I've got my opening. Thank you all. I think, so that was incredible. You made me cry, and tell your friends if you feel that it would help. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Goldthwait.
Oh, thanks.
I'm one of those people that's been seeing you for years, and I feel like I know you.
Oh, hello. Marty.
We go later.
Okay. In one direction.